Meeting, admit all.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're well. Thank you for joining today's webinar on exploring the power of Copilot extensions and plugins. My name is Sulabh Jain, and I'll be your host today. In my role here at Antares as the head of products and apps, I work with customers on a daily basis to solve industry problems on the Microsoft platform. And my team specifically focuses on building intelligent apps for customers. Joining me today is Satya Ravindran from Microsoft. Satya is a product manager at Microsoft at the Microsoft Teams platform. Satya focuses on overseeing development of Teams platform capabilities, but a large part of his role is also to inspire customers to think about Microsoft Teams as a comprehensive platform for building apps, integrating line of business solutions, and elevating productivity. Satya's focus also extends to AI-enabled solutions, exploring the best methods to harness the power of AI and building secure, scalable, and responsible enterprise AI applications. So before we get into it, I'd like to do a quick poll to help everybody and myself get a good idea about where everyone is in their AI journey. You should have a poll come up on your screen shortly with two quick questions. If you could take 30 odd seconds to participate, that would be great. Questions are, what are you looking to leverage AI for? Is it to increase productivity, gain better data insights, improve decision-making, automate tasks, or something else? And the next question is, are you using or considering M365 Copilot? Give us your views on that and say, are you actively using it? You're in trial phase. You're not using it, but you are considering it, or you have no plans to use it. Your participation would be very valuable. Poll will remain open for the next 10 or so minutes, so you have plenty of time to complete it as we move further along the session today. So in today's webinar, we'll focus on the topic of building extensions to M365 Copilot. To get started, I'll provide a brief introduction to Copilots, especially for those who are new to the concept and wrapping their head around it. We will then quickly move on to the topic of extensibility and why that is important. I'll hand over to Satya, who will delve into the inner workings of M365 Copilot and share insights on how to approach extensibility, along with key considerations to bear in mind. Satya will also walk us through a demo and some practical examples of extending M365 Copilot. Throughout the webinar, you will be all on mute, but don't let that stop you in engaging with us in the chat as we are covering the content, or if you have any questions or comments. We'll also reserve some time at the end for live Q&A. For those who are not very familiar with Antares, we have over 16 years experience in implementing wide-ranging solutions for some of the biggest brands in Australia. We specialize in delivering solutions on the Microsoft platform that span across modern work, application development, and data and AI. We have a culture of innovation and have a range of IP that we bring to the table when implementing solutions or looking to solve industry problems. We also work with Microsoft account teams and engineering on a number of initiatives together. We do a lot of work on AI and Copilots with the developers of the revolutionary AI-based self-learning bot called Qbot that was showcased by Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella during his keynote speech at Microsoft Worldwide Conference in 2019. This is a key platform we use for a number of solutions when building custom AI solutions for our customers. So imagine this. Just 3 years from now, the tech world predicts a significant change. Think of anything you use today, tools, services, even maps. Microsoft, along with other leaders, envision a future where these things might feel incomplete without AI. Picture it like a car without GPS guidance. a map with no live traffic updates. AI is poised to become the unseen force behind a world that runs a lot more smoother and anticipates our needs. Just imagine software that learns your workflow, suggestions that seem eerily accurate. This is the future we envision, with artificial intelligence seamlessly integrated into the fabric of our daily experiences. The AI revolution is upon us, and those who fail to embrace it will inevitably be left behind. So with the transformation happening with AI, the age of copilots has arrived. AI Copilot technology leverages natural language processing, voice recognition, and visual interpretation to empower us. These AI Copilots are our creative partners. They help us find better answers, deliver exceptional work, and achieve more than ever before. Think of it like a seasoned captain with a co-pilot by their side. Together, they share information, they strategize, and navigate challenges for a smoother, more successful journey. The future of our work is about human and AI intelligence working together. When we look at AI from a Microsoft perspective, there are two pathways. There are copilots available in every Microsoft cloud and every Microsoft product to help us improve and do our work better and faster. Think of the Word Copilot, Outlook Copilot, Teams Copilot, M365 Copilot, etc., etc. These are examples of the out-of-the-box, everyday AI products, AI copilots, I should say, aimed at improving productivity. On the other hand, you can develop your own copilots and AI products and solutions suitable to your organization needs, leveraging your own intellectual property and specific to your own requirements. These solutions can be used to enhance current offerings or provide a new service or a product to internal and external stakeholders, setting your organization apart from the others and providing a competitive advantage. We here at Antares are helping customers with both pathways, whether their customers are looking to improve everyday productivity or build bespoke AI-based solutions. However, today, we're going to talk about Copilot extensibility. So we're going to focus our conversation on the everyday Copilots, and specifically, we're going to focus on M365 Copilot as the most widely used and adopted Copilot at the moment. So, like I said, there are a number of Copilots that are available out of the box today. These Copilots are ready for you to adopt with out-of-the-box capabilities. Now, Microsoft, being a platform company, also built ways for developers to extend your line of business apps or data into these Copilots. And that's the extensibility story, and that's what we're focusing on today. So specifically, we're going to be focusing on how to extend your business apps and data into Copilot for M365. And you look at the second pillar there, that's our key focus of the discussion today. So with that, let's talk a little about Copilot for Microsoft 365. Copilot for M365 became generally available to enterprise customers in November 2023. In a nutshell, it's your AI assistant for work, and it introduces a new way of working. Copilot has 4 key components. It has the foundational capabilities of the large language models that we are becoming used to. It is grounded in the latest web data, so it has most up-to-date information and knowledge of the internet. It has access to your data in Microsoft Graph, which is the gateway to all of the data sets across M365 apps, such as your email, your chats, your documents. You have the documents you have access to, calendar details, and so on and so forth. It also has information about compliance, security, identity, and privacy policies. So all of these together can be accessed in natural language across your M365 apps, such as Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, OneNote, Blue, a Whiteboard, etc., using the M365 Copilot. M365 Copilot is new, and it defines a new way of working, like I said before. So Microsoft is conducting regular studies to understand its users, adoption patterns, and so on and so forth. This is the result of the most recent study Microsoft conducted using a combination of surveys and experiments to deeply understand how Copilot is being used by people and what are its benefits. The feedback and the data collected from Copilot's earliest users underscore that for many, the platform shift to AI is already underway, ushering in a new wave of productivity, growth, and value creation. Early users don't want to go back to working without it. In fact, 77% people say they don't want to give it up. 70% of the people said Copilot makes them more productive. And 68% of the people said Copilot improved the quality of their work. So with that context and background, let's discuss why we should think about extending M365 Copilots. I'm going to answer this question by looking at a few use cases. Many of us, depending on our role, are working with many different systems and tools to get our jobs done. Take an example of a frontline worker working in a retail store. Their typical day begins with inventory management tasks, using the store's ERP system to track stock levels and place order with suppliers. As customers flood into the store, they would rely on a point of sale system to process transactions quickly and efficiently. When assisting customers, they would juggle between multiple systems to check product availability, pricing, promotions, etc. Now, let's take an example of an office worker. In this case, let's say it's a lawyer working at a law firm. Their day would typically start with sorting through a flood of emails from clients, colleagues, and partners. They would spend considerable time sifting through information to identify critical updates, requests, and tasks. They would have many meetings with clients and colleagues, which would generate more information that they need to manage and process. When lawyers need to conduct legal research, they turn to third-party applications as well as their own internal databases that they have been managing. All of this is at the end of the day, all of this requires navigating through multiple systems, complex interfaces, often spending hours, days, finding, processing relevant information, cases, precedents, before deep analysis or deep work can actually begin. And let's consider another role, or another role. This person might be sitting in a CXO's position. So they're a decision maker. And they would spend a lot of time meeting different stakeholders, understanding their needs. There would be a lot of references, actions, and decisions that they would need to take. Throughout the day, they would work with their teams and who would in turn work with various different systems to generate insights and information that they need to make informed decisions. So businesses are inundated with a vast array of systems designed for various different purposes, and everybody is working through a multitude of systems, data points, etc. But there is a challenge of fragmented information spread across various enterprise systems, leading to time-consuming searches and analysis. Depending on the role, people spend considerable time internalizing information and switching between different applications to gain insights, decreasing overall productivity. Enterprise business processes involve multiple steps, including email communication, analysis, third-party applications, which all lead to further complexity and inefficiencies. With M365 Copilot, we have an everyday AI productivity tool that can go beyond simple out-of-the-box use cases of helping us write an email or draft a document. It can go beyond that to solve business problems and more complex use cases by integrating it with line of business systems that sit outside of Microsoft 365. Integrating M365 Copilot with your own line of business systems enables streamlined workflows, reducing the time and effort required to access and analyze information. By consolidating data from various sources, M365 Copilot provides users with quicker access to relevant information, accelerating decision-making processes. With the ability to perform semantic search and summarize information across various data sources, Copilot enhances efficiency, allowing professionals to focus on more high-value tasks. The integration facilitates easier access to information through natural language queries, enhancing accessibility and usability for users across different proficiency levels. By automating repetitive tasks and simplifying complex workflows, we save both time and costs associated with information retrieval and analysis. And the seamless integration and natural language capabilities of M365 Copilot offer users a more intuitive and a user-friendly experience, leading to a lot more higher satisfaction and adoption rates. So let's look at some extensibility scenarios. What you've got on your screen is just a tip of the iceberg, and these are just some of the examples to help you start thinking along these lines. Many customers rely on systems like ServiceNow, Zendesk, etc. for service management, incident management, storing their FAQs, etc. So the ability to quickly find information where you're chasing something or need an update or something's been brought up in a meeting, you need to find that information, or the ability to quickly ask Copilot, say, go and find a knowledge article, or like I said, if you're sitting in a meeting, you want to find that specific piece of information, or you're interested in stats around your incident, service requests, etc. That's super helpful. That can be achieved by integrating with these kind of systems. And I won't go into the specifics of what and how. That's going to be shortly followed by Satya. So another common one here is where you have multiple knowledge management systems, like you're using Confluence, SharePoint, maybe again ServiceNow for managing knowledge articles, your standard operating procedures, and so on and so forth. Through the power of AI, we don't have to worry about which system has what information. We can just simply ask the question, and M365 Copilot, through its plugins, graph connectors, etc., will automatically work out where is that information, what is the intent of the user, and it will automatically come back to us in with an answer in a easily digestible manner. Once we get the information, M365 Copilot has the context of the previous discussion, so I can ask further questions about the information it has provided me. And again, that allows me to access the information much quicker, much easily than I would otherwise be able to. Another good example is where for CXOs and decision makers, these people rely on data to make decisions and would get a lot of reports from various different systems. Through AI, we can provide that information at fingertips to the decision makers when they need it, because once the plugins, etc., are created, we can extract the data real time as opposed to wait for a scheduled report to come through, or go through the clunky interface and navigate through layers of menus, search through disparate databases, wait for slow loading interfaces, etc., before we can actually get to the data we need. Legal and contracts is also a good one because these are typically internal or third-party systems that you can extract a lot of useful information from in a timely manner without having again have to go through troves of information to be able to arrive at the information you need. For example, if you need to look up a particular clause in a contract, you can just look that up through Copilot without having to go to the contract system, read the entire contract, etc., etc. So hopefully that sets up some context. Hopefully, I've given you some food for thought. We're now going to get into the inner workings of M365 Copilot and how you can actually build extensions. So I'm going to pass on to Satya, who's going to explain to us some of the behind the scenes of how M365 Copilot works, and then give us some real practical examples of how some of these extensibility scenarios can be turned into reality. Satya, over to you.
Thanks, Sulabh. Can you confirm you're able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see.
Awesome then. Hi everyone, I'm Satya. I'm a PM from Teams Engineering. I primarily focus on building or helping customers build Copilot integrations. So I wanted to build on what Sulabh just talked about on why exactly you need Copilot extensibility. Why do you even need to consider extending your out-of-box Copilot that you get when you purchase it from Microsoft, right? So that's the part that I want to cover. But if you want to talk about the why, we would probably want to understand how Copilot works a little bit on like without getting into too much technical details. You want to understand how exactly it currently works. When you ask a question, what happens behind the screens? So that's something that I want to touch upon first, and then we will move on to the why you need extensibility. So think of a Copilot as the central brain sitting along with an LLM. You are accessing Copilot through one of many interfaces. So, for example, you can access Copilot through a Microsoft Teams chat, or a Copilot can come from a side pane in a Microsoft Word or in a Microsoft PowerPoint, or you can access Copilot through copilot.microsoft.com in your SharePoint. So there are multiple surfaces where Copilot gets surfaced to the end users, and you can ask different questions depending on where you are. And if it's a PowerPoint, you might ask, hey, summarize the slide for me. If it's Word, you can ask, is there a particular clause, particular paragraph that's written well, or can you rewrite it for me, right? If it's in Microsoft Teams, you can ask something like, look up all the chats in the past 7 days that I have not read and summarize it for me, right? So these are the kind of questions you ask in different surfaces, and Copilot gets this as a user prompt from whichever surface you asked. The Copilot is the central engine which gets it as a user prompt. The second step that happens is, as soon as Copilot gets it, it needs to do a level of grounding. So essentially, if you see the line over here, right, there is a grounding that happens with Microsoft Graph. Exactly what happens here is, once you ask the question, Copilot should know who you are. But when you say, hey, summarize my past chats for the past 7 days, it should know who my refers to, right? Like, so you should know who the signed in user is, what kind of files, chats, emails they have access to, what kind of files they have access to in order to answer that question. Copilot cannot summarize an email that was received for someone else, right? There should be a basically a level of access control that you currently have that Copilot should also respect. That's what happens over here. It uses Graph to resolve and to understand who you are and what kind of access you have, and based on that, it will fetch information relevant for you at this point in time, right? I will park on these two boxes for now. I'll come back on this later, but essentially consider this as the Microsoft Graph information, everything that is in the M365 cloud, your emails, your chats, your files, your calendars, contacts, everything that is in the Microsoft 365 cloud is indexed here, and this is what we call as semantic index. I think you might have heard this term in many places. So semantic index is kind of like this library that Copilot refers to whenever you ask a question, right? Once Copilot refers to the semantic index or the graph content, and then it feels satisfied. Okay, I do have some information using which I can answer this user's question. Then it will take that context, whatever it found, right? Like it could be a paragraph from a Word document, it could be a snippet of your chat, whatever it is. It takes that chunk of paragraph or text, and then it will get it to a large language model. Here it is an Azure OpenAI large language model that is operated by Microsoft. So the Copilot works in tandem with a large language model, which adheres to all the responsible AI principles that Sulabh just spoke about, right? So at this point, the large language model gets to know your question. It also has some context on how to answer your question, right? So a modified prompt is sent into the large language model. And once the large language model does its job, does its magic of converting the question, the context into a useful output. So it essentially generates what would be a good answer for the question. It then sends it back into to Copilot, which again, it not just receives the response from the LLM, it also again calls the semantic index and the graph to make sure that the information that the LLM generated is actually grounded in truth and reality. Because I think you might have heard LLMs sometimes can hallucinate. It can probably generate answers which might not be grounded in truth. It can fabricate information. It can talk about things that are not there in reality. So we want to avoid it when people in enterprise context, when business users want to know about something, want to know when a due date for a particular deliverable is. You don't want Copilot to hallucinate, right? So Copilot gets the information from LLM and make sure that it kind of like cross verifies if the information provided by the LLM still holds true with the context that it has. Only after it cross verifies, make sure that there's a second round of grounding, compliance, all of that happens. That's the post processing that you see here. Once this is done, then only then it sends the response back to the user. So the final response that you receive, the line number 6 that you see over here, happens after all these intermediate steps happen one by one, right? This is kind of like the behind the scenes of how Copilot works when you ask a very simple question. Now, the one thing that I think you would notice over here is this entire boundary is within the Microsoft 365 cloud, right? So from what I described, Copilot only has access to information present in the Microsoft 365 cloud, like your email, chats, contacts, and whatnot. It does not have access to your business systems that you'll probably use as well. Think of a regular project management, right? Like imagine you are supposed to create a report, a project update report for your leadership, right? What do? You kind of like go through your emails to see updates from your team members if anyone has updated, or you probably like go through your chats to see where different tasks are. And you will also refer to some kind of a project management system, right? Like you might have a project management system. It could be a Jira. It could be some other system that you have you have built yourself for your organization. So you'll probably refer to the system which is going to be outside Microsoft 365 cloud, right? Like this is not going to be within its boundary. So you'll probably check that to see where different tasks are, what are the different tasks, what is the status, when the due date is. So all of that you will probably like see from the system, and then you will create a report for your leadership, right? So a simple goal that you want to do, any everyday task that you do will involve you looking at not just M365 data. You will jump across multiple systems that are going to be outside the boundary of M365 data, right? Think of your a hiring scenario, a candidate or resume database, or your job descriptions that you'd want to put out. All of these are going to be stored somewhere outside M365 cloud, right? Now, how do you bring or how do you have Copilot access some of this content as well so that it can become more intelligent? After all, LLMs are as intelligent as the kind of information you give to the LLM. So essentially, Copilot can do your Uber level goals, the goals that you'd want to achieve in your day-to-day work, only when it has access to relevant information, right? So how do you extend Copilot so that it can access information outside the Microsoft 365 cloud boundary? That's where extensibility comes in. So if you see at this stage, right, number 2 and number 3, the steps where it kind of like does a grounding, where once it gets a question, I think, let me go back one second. Once it gets a question, it checks the Microsoft graph, the semantic index. At this stage, in addition to the graph and semantic index, we have something, we extend and we use something called as plugins and also graph connectors, right? Power Platform and graph connectors. So it's kind of like you have this big library. In addition to that, you also give Copilot tools to look outside that library. So imagine like you are opening a window for the Copilot to peek outside the library in case the information is outside the library that it already has, right? That's the power of extensibility. And let me delve into how exactly we do extensibility, right? And this is kind of like summarizing what I just mentioned. You have Copilot as an Uber level, like one central brain and an engine, and users can interact with Copilot across multiple different surfaces, like you mentioned, right? Now, built-in out-of-box Copilot can have certain skills. It can do a certain set of things, right? For example, you can ask Copilot to summarize your email. You can ask Copilot to write a poem if you're into that. Like you can give a technical Word document and ask it to write a poem. It did surprisingly well. You can ask Copilot to compare two documents and say if there are any changes that you would need to make. You can even ask Copilot to be a critic on a particular product spec or anything that you have written, and Copilot will do that. So it has a certain set of summarization, abstraction, question answering, these kind of capabilities that it comes out of bots as skills. This is what we call as skills. And also Copilot has access to certain content out of bots. So for example, it has access to your emails, chats, like you mentioned. So that's the knowledge. So Copilot has access to certain skills out of bots, and Copilot has access to certain knowledge out of bots. So these are the two dimensions that Copilot comes out of bots, right? Now, if you want to extend Copilot, then essentially you have two dimensions in which you can extend: skills and knowledge. You can extend what Copilot can do. You can extend what knowledge Copilot has, right? Those are the two dimensions in which you can extend Copilot. Let's cover the first one. I think that will also be the focus of our discussion today, where if you want to extend Copilot to have more skills, for example, you would want Copilot to look up your incident database, your ticketing database, and bring a ticket back to you, summarize a ticket. These are things that it doesn't know out of bots, right? So that's a new skill that you're teaching Copilot. And what we call as plugins are the way to teach Copilot new skills, right? That's one approach of extensibility. The second dimension of extension is what we call as extending knowledge. So you're okay with skills, you're okay with Copilot summarizing something, you're okay with Copilot's current skills, but you want to extend the number of documents within its reach, the kind of content it summarizes, right? Then you feed Copilot more information, right? That's something that you do with graph connectors. So that's the second mode of extension. Graph connectors will help you extend the kind of knowledge Copilot has access to, right? That's the second mode. And I think this is kind of like a new concept, and feel free to have, if you have any questions, feel free to post them on the chat and I can address them live as well. So with these plugins and connectors, how what are the kind of things that you can ask, right? Like you can ask Copilot to find me assigned tickets from a particular project management plugin that you built. You can ask Copilot to bring you all the tickets that are assigned to you from a plugin, and Copilot will look for an external project management database and bring the tickets back to you. You can ask, find a particular info. Hey, find what do we have regarding an upcoming holiday in an internal wiki, right? Like you can ask the question. You can ask things like list all items. If you have an inventory database, right? Like you can ask list all items that are low in stock but are seeing a lot of demand in the past month, right? So that's something that you can ask your inventory management database, and Copilot will be able to call a plugin and get you that information. Find info on all delayed flights from the past 30 days. That's something actually one of our customers did. We have it as a demo. So that's something that you can ask in LN API. So think of the possibilities of what kind of information you'd want to ask, right? And that's kind of how you'd want to think of scenarios as well. One key difference between plugins and graph connectors is you should think of plugins as opening a window real time to an external world. Imagine you're asking a question about something that keeps changing dynamically very fast. Imagine you're asking a question about a ticket, right? What status, how is my team doing in terms of the progress on this particular project, right? The progress on this project, like your team might be closing the tickets really fast. Maybe the progress would be different now compared to what it was half an hour back, right? So the tickets are going to keep changing in status. It's going to be not started to in progress to complete in a matter of a few hours. So for that kind of dynamic content, you would want a real-time view into what's happening. So plugins are kind of like opening a window real time. Whenever you ask a question to Copilot, Copilot uses a plugin to real time call your backend database, get the relevant tickets or get the whatever relevant information back to you, and Copilot will summarize it or do whatever you want with it, right? Those are plugins. Graph connectors are different from plugin in the sense it's kind of like not opening a window, but it's more like you create a pipeline to an external database or to an external system. And this pipeline works on a scheduled basis. So when you are setting up a graph connector, you determine, hey, I want this to refresh every day at 9 a.m. or every Monday at 10 a.m. Something you give a recurring frequency at which time graph connector will see the external content that you have, create a copy of it within the semantic index. So graph connectors are not real time. It's more of getting a copy of an external system and creating it into the semantic index. So Copilot has access to a large volume of knowledge, right? So you're supposed to use graph connectors for more of things which will not change a lot, right? For example, the internal wiki that you see over here, it shouldn't change a lot every day, right? Like things like policy documents. These are things that will change that will change uh, very infrequently. So, for example, once in 6 months or something. So those are cases where graph connectors will be a good fit. Let's see an example of how an inventory management system can be built using a plugin, right? What you see over here is say store manager asking a question to Copilot. Find only the beverages in Northwind. Northwind is the name of the retail store, which are low in stock with reference to each project, each product. Then with this list, generate a report to show supplier, unit of stock, reorder level, blah, blah, a lot of different things. So, and then they're asking, add a column using this emoji for products with the reorder level, products where the ordering level is not compliant with my reorder policy. So what you see here is actually a bunch of different commands and an actual report, like how you think in your head in real time, right? So someone is talking to Copilot as if you're talking to a colleague, and they're asking information. First, get me this. Then with the list that you get, do a little bit of transformation like this. Then with that transformed list, again do another transformation like this. That's what they're asking over here. Let's see what Copilot does here, right? So Copilot now calls a plugin which will get it real-time stock information from a backend stocks inventory database, and it is able to format it in the form of a table. Now, in this case, this is Copilot's decision. Copilot felt, hey, this information is probably like best represented as a table for the user, so I should give it as a table, right? Like no one, the user can ask to give it as a bullet point, and Copilot will be able to do that too. Now, this information, the units in stock, reorder level, all of this is something that gets from a database. But if you see here, right, this is a feed, this is a column that is calculated on the fly. Because the user has asked, hey, use this emoji or use this symbol to tell me whether a particular product is compliant or not. What Copilot does here is, once it gets the reorder level, it checks for a reorder level. It checks for the policy document from your system. For example, this the MAQ policy at Northwind is basically a Word file or a PDF file stored somewhere in a SharePoint. So Copilot is able to get information from a database on one side, compare the information that it got with the Word document or a PDF on the other side, and can see which is compliant and which is not. And based on that information, it can even format it in a way that you want, right? And the effort to build it, you don't have to code or you don't have to write the logic for actually building this piece. This is all LLM magic. You the effort that you have is just fetching information from a database. The rest of all this orchestration is something done by Copilot and the LLM. So that's the beauty of it, right? Like, so once you bring your systems into the intelligent Copilot orchestration, you kind of get more benefits than just simple lookup of information. I want to
Satya,
also
I've
show.
got a-
Yeah.
Sorry, I've got a quick question on that. So in that use case, you're retrieving a whole bunch of information from the database, right? If we wanted to then go and say, I want to update that particular stock level, that sort of a thing, we could just create like a button, like a task module or something that would then write that information back, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So you can ask, hey, can I update, can I reorder the chai to be in stock, right? And it will actually get you an adaptive card. I don't know if folks on the call have seen an adaptive card. It's essentially a card sort of view that you will get over here. And it can have any buttons. It can have, the reorder chai to, and you can actually mention the number of units you would want to reorder. And you can do all of that in this one flow.
Yeah. Cool. Thanks.
So you can have an end-to-end, management of an inventory, right, using Copilot and plugins. We also have a slightly another showcase from one of our customers in India. So there's a airline called Air India. They wanted to have a good view into how their airlines have been performing, like basically like in terms of on-time performance, whether the airlines are starting from the source and destinations airports at the right time. So they built this plugin. Essentially, they wanted to have some way to talk a natural language to their backend database. That's what is happening over here, right? So they can ask questions like, hey, can you list flights which are on time and departing from Atlanta? And the plugin is able to look at the database real time and check for flights which started on time and which departed on time as well. So what you see over here is the adaptive card that I talked about earlier. On top of it, you can also ask, Copilot to, can you list flights which have shown a delay of more than X number of minutes in the past month? And Copilot will know to convert this natural language into an SQL query and then query the backend database, get the information. And here, what you see over here is slightly, I think, one of the workflows that Sulabh was talking about, right? So you not only get this information, you get an actionable card with the buttons that you would want depending on your scenario. In this case, Air India wanted to have a chat with the airport manager whenever flights seem to have been delayed. So they kind of like, you can have a button over here which will allow anyone, kind of like a central controller, to chat with the airport manager whenever they see a flight has been delayed more than a acceptable number of minutes, right? And they can start a group chat immediately from there, or you can schedule a meeting too. In this case, another good example of using this is, can you tell me top most common reasons for delays in the past month, or whatever you'd want, right? For flights which are delayed for more than X number of minutes, what are the top most reasons? So it is able to comb through the database, get the reasons listed in the database, summarize it for you. So it's not just bringing it as is. Copilot is actually doing the job of summarizing it also for you. And once you get that, you can actually ask Copilot to, hey, can you you can actually follow it up with, can you write an email with each of the airport managers and ask them to work on these delays, and Copilot will be draft an email also for you. So that's kind of like the power of how much you can do with just a simple, creating a plugin that talks to an external database, and using that you can build a lot of different capabilities. And the beautiful thing about these integrations is, it's not just the thing that you build, because Copilot itself comes with a lot of capabilities, like ability to draft an email, ability to read and summarize and generalize. All of these things, you can follow up your question with a lot of out of box capabilities of Copilot. So you can ask something, and then it can actually generate on top of the earlier response. So with this, what you have heard so far, I just wanted to check, what kind of systems would you like your Copilot to talk to, right? It might be your CRM, it might be your ERP database, it might be some other system. What kind of systems that is currently not in Microsoft 365 Cloud do you feel would be useful to bring within the reach of Copilot? The poll is on. Please to take a look and then please to answer. Back to you, Sulabh, unless you have any questions.
Thank you, Satya. That was very, very insightful. Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate you sharing all of that information. I will take control back now. Give me a second. Should be able to see my screen. Is that coming through, Satya? You can see that? Cool.
The poll, yes, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I can see that.
So there's three key takeaways, I guess, based on what I covered initially, and then what Satya just went through. Copilot is your AI assistant for productivity. The prompts, the chat sessions, etc., are never used to train the LLM. And all of that data is secured within your Microsoft 365 boundary. You can extend Copilot skills with plugins. Like Satya gave us some examples in the demo there. We can build Teams message extensions for us to be able to call that data real time and engage or interact with content in that sort of manner. We can also expand the Copilot's knowledge with graph connectors. Like Satya mentioned, these are snapshots of the data in your line of business systems, in your other enterprise systems, and they allow us to connect to that data, index that data, and then generate a semantics index. So when you ask a simple question, Copilot goes and works out what sort of skills it has, what sort of knowledge it has, and then it pulls that information back to us, which is very, very cool. So next steps. When it comes to M365 Copilot, we're helping customers with each step of their journey, from an organizational perspective, from a technical perspective, and from a people perspective. What does that mean? For those customers who are in the early stages of their journey and need assistance with AI services, we have an AI Center of Excellence program that we're helping many, many customers with to talk through the art of the possible, develop use cases that solve actual business problems. We are going beyond the writing of the email, create a Word document, those kind of scenarios here. And these are the use cases that actually talk through the ROI. M365 Copilot is not cheap, as many of you know, and so you need to be solving business problems to be able to actually realize the ROI from the technology. There's customers who need assistance with training and adoption. And so we're helping customers with those kind of things. There's customers who need more technical assessments to be done to make sure their environments are ready. They don't have any security risks. There's data governance, etc., in place to make sure that before they open it or when they open it, they are confident that there's not going to be information leakages and things of that nature. We talked about the extensibility today, which is the last wedge of that pie. And we look at this as an extension to the adoption challenge. We need to be solving business problems for customers to be comfortable in using M365 Copilot and wanting to use Copilot, on a daily basis. So there are a range of programs and things of that nature we have. So if there's anything that you would need assistance with, feel free to reach out. If you're new to the M365 Copilot journey and you're still trying to figure out what it does and how it works, etc., you can also reach out to us. We have M365 Copilot workshop that we're helping customers with that sort of a thing. And if you are a customer who's already down the M365 Copilot path and need assistance with extending Copilot for your organization, that was the session today. Again, we are running a number of these kind of sessions with our customers to go through a very structured process for the help for them to ideate and then basically work out what sort of business problems do they want to invest in and solve by integrating with their key systems. So that's basically it. That was the topic of the session today. We're open to any questions if you have any. We've got a little bit of time left, so I will shift my attention to any Q&A, etc. Whilst we're waiting, Satya, are there any key systems and common systems you're coming across that customers are going, we want to build our extensions to Copilot with these kind of systems? Like, if I think about the conversations we're having, systems like ServiceNow, Jira, even Workday, those kind of systems are coming up often. CRM, different types of CRM systems are coming up as well. What are you finding in your discussions?
Yeah, that's true. I think customers are definitely looking at, I think, incident ticket management is definitely one of the top use cases. So customers who already have ServiceNow would want to have something to speak with ServiceNow, and third-party applications that they have purchased as license for. Many customers also have homegrown solutions for ticketing systems, project management systems. So that's something that I have heard time and again. I think a couple of ones that I keep hearing again is CRM. Connecting to your CRM is going to be pretty helpful in a lot of sales opportunities. And also, one on hey, I have a new request for proposal coming in. How do I make, how do I use Copilot to generate a first draft of a response for a new RFP I'm getting, right? Like, so I have all this past RFP responses that I've created. So can I use that and Copilot to create a new response? So that's also those kind of scenarios also something that I keep hearing.
Are there any like gotchas or things that you are aware of that customers are often stumbling into when thinking of extensibility?
So I think in terms of extensibility, one of the challenges I see is definitely, since it's a pretty new area, it's a new area for not just Microsoft, like entire world. So coming up with the right scenarios is something that it's definitely a little bit of a struggle, right? Like you want to know what exactly is going to be benefited by bringing into Copilot, and things that are pretty simple, pretty straightforward, just a simple approval workflow. You don't really need the power of Copilot behind it. So knowing which to bring in, where you can unlock value, and knowing which is it's okay to leave it as is. That's probably like area that we kind of like also like we are working with customers to educate them as well. I think you also Sulabh, I think you also have, your team also has a very good understanding of like the scenarios. I believe you run a scenario workshop as well, right, to do that?
Yeah.
So that's going to be a very useful area, because there is definitely a need for talking about which scenarios are very well lending itself to the Copilot era.
Yeah. Any industry specific solutions that are coming through at the moment are too early?
I think horizontal scenarios are definitely taking the cake right now. Like industries, vertical solutions, we are seeing certain frontline worker solutions. So frontline worker solutions. What I mean by that is like people who are on their mobile. Think of doctors, going through different wards, meeting their patients. They can ask Copilot, hey, give me a summary of this particular patient's last last recommendation, or what is the update on this particular patient. So they can look up the patient database to get the information on that. So that's something that I've heard. And for construction, construction workers and so on, looking up different items in the very similar to the inventory database, right? Like looking up different construction materials. That's something that we are actually working on with one of our customers. So those are picking up. But yeah, like vertical solutions are still, I think we will probably like see more of them once the horizontal scenarios are pretty well understood by the customers.
Yeah. And maybe a little curly question. So on the CRM side of things, when we're having conversations around dynamic Salesforce, is that more around Copilot for sales kind of a conversation?
So Copilot for sales would be, I'm from a different team, so I wouldn't know completely about Copilot for sales. But yeah, like Copilot for sales would also do some of the things that what our extensibility is supposed to do. All right. So if your scenario, if your systems work well with Copilot for sales and it's the intended audience, I think that's something that you should definitely take a look at first before building something from scratch. There's going to be a lot of overlap as well, right? Like if you build something from scratch, that's already there. So do check that out. And but even with Copilot for sales, there is going to be an extensibility angle there as well. So
Yeah.
I think extensibility will come into play because whatever Microsoft builds, it can only build catering to the general themes that we see across different areas. There is always going to be bespoke requirements, very customized requirements that each customer is going to have, and that is only going to be satisfied by extensibility because extensibility is something you can take and you're flexible to create however you want, and that last mile extensibility is something that's going to live in any which way.
Yeah, yeah. When just thinking about extensibility kind of scenarios, I'm just thinking like the top apps that where it's really, really useful or where we're finding really value for customers. Based on what we're finding, it's definitely Teams, it's Outlook, and Word. Is that what you're hearing, or are you hearing something else?
In terms of value from using Copilot in the apps,
extensibility of the Copilot solutions.
yeah, so definitely more popular surfaces are Teams and Outlook. I can see that. Word is also becoming more and more popular. I think once extensibility story comes in, it will probably change a bit. Like you will like once you start building extensibility for not just using it within Teams, but in Word and Outlook and other areas as well, right? So once that comes in, I think it will kind of like revolutionize how you use each of these different products.
Yeah. And how is Microsoft thinking about that? Like, would we have to build different kind of plugins and graph connectors, etc., or is the thinking behind once we've got it for Teams, we should be able to kind of leverage the same thing for Outlook and other apps, or what's the thinking there?
Yeah, the plugin that you build is not tied to Copilot within Teams. We see Copilot as this product that's cutting across multiple surfaces. So the plugin that you build is for Copilot. So whatever you build once is going to be surfacing in multiple different systems. You will probably need to do some configurations like allow listing a certain domain or whatever, but you wouldn't have to rebuild for each surface. So you build once, that's going to be available across multiple surfaces. Definitely the capabilities will probably change a little bit. Some things you can do in Teams may not be available may not be meaningful to do in an Outlook or in a Word, right? Like so those capabilities will be picked, will be chosen depending on which surface it is coming up in. But otherwise, developers, the customers would not have to build once for every different surface. That's going to be a huge lift. That's not the way that we're thinking about.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good. I'm just going to have a quick look, see how we're going for time, and if there are any questions.
I see one question. I think I answered one question earlier. I see one question on, is there any way to connect if you do not have an API? So if you do not have an API, if you have an SDK or some other way to talk to the external system, plugins will work. So the plugin part is pretty straightforward, right? Like it is essentially a way to, like I said, open a window. So there should be some way you should be able to talk to an external system. Then plugin will wrap itself around that approach. Like you should be able to either use a HTTP call to HTTP get call or a HTTP post call to talk to an external system, or an SDK way of invoking, getting information from an external system. So as long as there is a way to communicate, even outside Copilot, outside, you build your own application to communicate with some external
Yeah.
system. As long as you have some way to talk to that external system, you should be able to use it within the plugin wrapper as well. And once you build it as a plugin, then that becomes a Copilot skill, so that Copilot can call it whenever needed.
Sounds good. I think we're out of time. I'll ask you one quick question. What happens to the data when we getting the data through a plugin? Where is that stored?
So Copilot does not store any information. It's a stateless, stateless LLM, and Azure OpenAI stateless LLM as well. So it's basically in transit. Like, so whatever you send, HTTP call goes to the backend system. You get the response, and then it comes back into the logic that you write as a programmer. So you kind of like own whether you want to store it or not. If you want to store it, you can create an Azure SQL or a Cosmos DB, and you can store it within your own tenant. But that's up to you how you would want to implement your business logic. By default, Copilot does not store any of the responses or the input into a plugin or out of a plugin.
Awesome. Cool. We're out of time. So thank you so much for everybody who attended the call today. I hope you found that useful. If you have any further questions and would like to discuss this topic further, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to get on a call and discuss that with you. Thank you, Satya, for presenting today and for answering many of the questions. So really appreciate that as well. We'll call it a day. But yeah, thank you for again attending, and have a good one.
Thank you. Thanks all.